Hello everyone, this is Joshua Hadji, Software Engineering Supervisor here at Pixelate, and I'm here to talk to you about Quasar. Now, this video is a part of a series of videos wherein we explore Quasar's components as well as we try to explore how they use them, how we can implement them in our own applications. Before we begin, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button in order to be notified of our latest updates as well as when new videos get uploaded. At any point in time, if you see this video is useful, please don't forget to leave a like. For any questions and inquiries, or for those of you who need clarifications, please don't hesitate to comment down below. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, in the previous video, we tackled buttons. For example, we have this button, the very big button, we have avatar buttons, series of buttons like this one, as well as drop down buttons. So in our previous video, we tackled three types of buttons, namely the button group, as well as the button drop down. So in this video, we're going to talk about the card component. Now, you might be asking, what is a card? So to put things simple, in Quasar's definition, a card is a great way to display important pieces of group content. So for example, one typical usage of a card is for grouping items. So imagine a website where you can, for example, choose for products or buy certain products. Of course, they're going to display their products in a neatly grouped, nice way, right? So that is one example of a card usage. So much content to display at once, like the Quasar definition says, we don't have enough space to literally display everything. So the card becomes a very good use case for those types of situations. So in order to demonstrate, let's try implementing a card ourselves. So first, what we can do is we go down and you'll see the basic types of cards. So if you take a look at their code, you will see that there are simple sections. First, the QCard section, and then that's it. So if you want to implement that on our part, what we can do is, first, we try to remove all of the content for now. So removing that, what we can do is we implement a QCard, like so. So doing that, what happens is we created a Q card without a content. Now, in order to add content to that Q card, what we're going to do is to add a section to it, which is this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a Q card section. Now that we have a section, what we can do is we can put some textual content to it. So let's try text here. So as you can see, we now have a very simple Q card. Now, from that, how do we expand our card? For example, in this one. So, aside from that, you can also add some specific nitty-gritty details with regards to typography. For example, now we have a section here. What we can do is add another section. Let's add another section. Let's put a very long textual content here, something like that. Now, since we have that, you can see that we have two sections, this section right here and this section below here. Now, in order to differentiate the two content, what we can do is we can put a div right here. And then we can assign a specific typography class, for example, text H6, to give emphasis to the content, like so. Again, what we can do also is we can add another text like this. So we can implement that like so. So we add a text subtitle 2 for a smaller type of text, and then we add something by someone. So now that we have that, you can see that our text is looking really nice right here. So we have a title section here, and then we have a textual section here. Now, With that said, we can also add a separator like so. So in order to implement such, what we can do is we can add a Q separator. What it does is it generates a line separator in between the two sections, as you can see right here. But by looking at the line, it's not looking good because the line stretches from the east, right here, from the east to the west, right? So what we can do is add a little bit of padding in order to make it more compressed in a sense. So what we can do is we can add a padding inside. So we use QPA-MD. By doing so, what we just did is we created a padding around the element right here in order to compress the textual content in a more beautiful arrangement like so. So now, in order to make it a little bit better, what we can do is we can remove the padding for the sections. By doing so, we attach it all the way here. But in order to make it much better, we can remove the top padding and then we can remove the X padding, leaving the bottom padding as is. So now we have a nice arranged text here. Also, what we can do is we can apply the same rules to the section below, but with key differences. Instead of removing the top padding, we can remove the bottom padding, like so. Now, as you can see, it is much better right now. It is neatly arranged now. So that is just one example of layouting within a card. So, moving on, you can also add actions inside cards, for example, like so. In order to implement such feature, we can do is we can add a Q button inside a QCard actions component, or rather property of the QCard. So by doing so, what we create is akin to this. So we add a Q separator first, and then after that, what we do is we add a QCard actions. Then we add a Q button with a specific label, let's say accept. And then we add another button with a separate label, let's say reject. So by doing that, what we did is just we created two buttons right here, as you can see. Now, to make things much better, we can say that the button is flat, like so. So we add the flat property and there you have it. Now, you will notice that the text has no space for the bottom. We can fix that by removing this class. And now you have a separation between the two, which makes it much easier and much cleaner in a sense. So next is, let's remove all those paddings like so, and then leave the cue card alone. So there you have it. And then let's try adding a class here, pxmd. Oh, it's not working. Okay, so it doesn't work here. So adding a class to the queue separator does not change its look, as you notice. So let's move it here instead. Let's remove the padding. Oh, it looks bad. So let's leave it at that. And so there you have it. Now, going back, you can stack the buttons like so. Instead of putting them horizontally like this, you can put them vertically like this. So in order to implement that, we simply add the vertical property right here. So we add the vertical, and after doing so, you can see that it is arranged vertically. So aside from horizontal, you can also place them in vertical alignments. So moving on, you can see that you can also align the buttons based on how you want them aligned. So we can say we want them aligned to the right. Let's say align and then let's put it right. So as you can see, they are now aligned to the right side. So if we put a left here, they are aligned to the left side. Aside from that, you can also align them in around. For when you say around, what happens is it puts space in between the elements in the middle, right? So with that, you can push content to the edges if that is what you desire. So let's set it to the right instead. Let's align it to the right side, like so. Next, aside from alignment of buttons, of the action buttons rather, you can also attach media content to your card. For example, we have an image here, so we can use this image. So let's try using this image. So let's grab this image and then let's put it inside the QCard. Then you will see that it also consumes the entire card, like so. Next, aside from that also, what we can do is we can set a specific style to it. Let's see, style, width, no it doesn't work, so style. So let's say the width is 300 pixels. So there you go, much smaller text, or rather smaller card, more manageable. Aside from images, you can also add something like this. So we can create a card with an image and a specific div, like so. So if you grab this piece of code right here, we can do that as well to our image. So by doing so, instead of using an image, what we do is we use a QImage to make it an component. So by doing so, we close that, and then aside from that, we add a div, and then we put a title here. So as you can see, now we have this. So if we add the specific class, which is absolute bottom, you can see that it is now on the bottom side. Next, what we can do is we can put a text center to align the text to the center, like so. So by doing this, you can imagine that you can put a lot of things inside your Quasar card. Right now, we're adding an image with a specific caption right here, as well as a title text here with a subtitle here, and then we have content text here, and lastly, we have action buttons right here. So if you have any further questions or further clarifications about the card API, or rather about the card component, please don't hesitate to comment down below. Now, moving on, aside from that, you can also attach a video to a card. Now, how do we go about doing that? Instead of using the Q image, we can replace it with a Q video. And then, what we're going to do is we're going to attach a source to it. So, let's see. Let's try using a specific video. Let's try this one. So if you grab this link, rather, once you grab that link, you paste it here, then you close it, you will see that you have a video right here. Next, since we have video in here, we can also have an image with a parallax. So how do we do that? Instead of video this time, we replace it with a parallax component, like so. We grab the image and then we specify the height. So we simply paste it like so, and then you will see that we have a parallax right here. Now, since we don't have a scrollable element, or rather our div is not long enough to be scrolled, the parallax is not visible right here. But if you take a look at this one, if we move the scroll bar slowly, the parallax effect rather is working. So, as you may have noticed, so far our content in our cards are vertical by nature, right? We have a row, 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 and another row. What if you want your content inside the card to be horizontal, for instance? Now, aside from that, we can assign a horizontal card instead. So, how do we do that? First, we create a QCard, and then we add a specific QCard section, like so. And then we append a horizontal element to it, or rather property. And then what we add is a textual content here, like so. And then as you can see, we have a cue card. So let's remove that. Then let's try putting another div. No. Let's try adding another div. Yeah, right there. Now they're side by side. So let's put a QMX large. Yeah, there we go. Now, since we have a cue card, what we can do is we have a textual content, and the next is, aside from a section like this one, we add sections again. So now that we have a section of horizontal here, we add a cue card section, and then we add the textual content here, and then we add another cue card section, and then we add another textual content here, like so. By doing that, you can see that our content is now aligned horizontally rather than vertically like this one. So this type of alignment is useful for instances where you want your content to be horizontally aligned rather than vertically aligned. So the previous rules also apply to the horizontal one as well. So we can add a specific Q image here. So instead of a very long textual, or rather, instead of a textual content here, we can add an image here. So we can use this element. So we add a Q image here. Let's add some src. And as you can see, there you have. They are right there. So it's right there. So let's try expanding the card a bit. So let's add some pixels to it, like so. It works. So now you have a vertical card right here, and now you have a horizontal card right here. So aside from that, you can also combine specific combinations like this. So how do you go about doing that? What they did is simply create a horizontal cue card, like so, and then added sections to it. Then they added a separator, which is this one, and then they added the cue card actions in order to display the content like so. So what they did here is they created a horizontal cue card section here, which is a combination of two cue card sections, this one, and then another cue card separator here, and then you have cue card actions here. So that's what they did in order to implement this type of example. So here are some examples as well. So as you can see, there's a button right here. So how did they implement that? What you're seeing is they created a cue card and then a cue image. So this is the cue card, and then this is the cue image. Next is they created a cue card section. So this section is this one right here. So here's the cue button, as well as here's the cue text right here. So this is the text and this is the cue button. And then they added a rating component, which is this one. Next, they created another section, which is this one, and they added the dollar and then the Italian cafe and some text. Next, they added another separator here, and then they added the cue card actions here in order to create these two buttons right here. Now, moving on, you can also create your own table. As you can see, it is a card which contains table. So how do you do that? So in our case, instead of using a cue card section here, what we can do is create a Q markup table inside the QCard. So the QCard section is retained, for title purposes, but the key difference here is we have the Q markup table right here. So if you take a look at it, here's the QCard section, and then here's the QCard table in all its full rendering. So you have a QCard table here, or rather a markup table rendered inside a QCard. So aside from that, you can also implement tabs. Tabs are a way to separate content inside the card. So in order to implement that, what we can do is we create a QTabs. So what we need to do is we need to add a V model here. Let's create a tab. Let's say 1. So let's use that instead. So by doing so, we create a QCard with a tab. So we grab this one, and then we append the content here, like so. So now you have a V model, and as well as you have tabs here. So by going back, you can see that we have tab 1 and tab 2. So if we remove this one, let's put it back to how it was. And then next, in order to implement the container of the tabs, or rather the container of the contents, we implement QTab panels, like so. So we grab this content right here, we paste it here, and now you have 2 specific tab panels. To further elaborate, what we just did is we created a QTabs with 2 QTab. So how do you explain that? So QTabs is basically a component which allows you to create tabs, which is this one. So by combining several QTab components, you create a set of tabs, which looks like this. So we have tab 1 and then tab 2, like so. Next, what we did is we created the QTab panels, which wherein these are the panels that will contain our elements inside the tab. You will notice that it has a name of 1 and this one has a name of 1 as well. Meaning that if we click this specific tab, the content will redirect to this tab panel right here. Now, in order to stop the card from resizing too much, let's set a specific width to it. So let's say the width is 300 pixels as well. Now, if we resize if we change the content, the card does not resize that much anymore. So that's how you implement tabs inside a card. So aside from that, you can create expandables like this one as well. So in order to implement that feature, what we need is we need to create a Q button like so. And then what we can do is we add a vShow right here, which has a expanded. So what does this expanded thing do? Basically, it tells the div to show its content when the expanded data variable contains true. So if this is true, this div right here appears. And then what you see is the separator, which is this one, and then the QCard section right here. So if we close this, expandable turns false, and then it animates back. So that's how you implement a expandable feature for the card component. So that's the end of the card component, guys. So for the next video, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button in order to be notified. So for those of you who have questions, and if you see this video has been useful to you, please drop a like down below. Again, this is Joshua Hadji, Software Engineering Supervisor here at Pixelate, saying, see you later, Pixelators!